robots took my podcast, man.
Le Kotor, le Omnia, le Duo. I have been witness to something of consequence to you.
To me?
There's a great task needing to be done.
No doubt you've heard of our trouble at home.
A dragon, fire and stench. It is evil. Pure and simple.
You want me to do battle with that?
Behold, for I am chosen, I shall die that many may live.
Twice each year, the king selects a new victim. Chosen by lot. Girls, virgins.
Your king's made a pact with a monster.
But your children were dying.
Only a few. Does that sound cruel?
Blacksmith, have you ever forged a weapon?
An edge like no other on this earth.
Dragonslayer. Coming from Paramount Pictures.
Let's do it.
Okay, all right. So, okay, quick stretch, a quick warm up.
Yeah.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, all right.
Welcome to our podcast. This is the Robots Took My Podcast. I am Anthony.
I am Jordan.
And Jordan, who do we have here today? I hear we have a special guest joining us.
My new friend, Daniel Schweiger. He has a website called, am I going to say this right? I hope, Daniel, you can correct me. On the Score.
OnTheScore.com. Yes, tink you for mentioning it.
And also an actor. He has worked with Don Coscarelli. He has worked with Seth MacFarlane.
No, Don Coscarelli, no Seth MacFarlane.
Okay. I thought I saw you in a Family Guy thing. Were you in a flashback? No? Okay.
I've been played in, I think an actor friend of mine told me he played me in an episode of Superboy. So.
Okay, my bad.
Take the credit where you can get it.
Anything else you want to plug here, Dan? Please. By all
Oh
means.
my goodness! Well, you can check out the Bubba Hotep 20th anniversary 4K, one of my claims to cult fame. And
Hell yeah!
And on Blu-ray, you can pick up Audrey Rose, where I am on camera talking about how scary Michael Small's music is. And
oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just a bunch of the stuff. But you can find all that kind of fun stuff on OnTheScore.com.
And you also do, for a living, you do temp scores for movies. You pick out music for temp scores, right?
I do the devil's work. I am officially a temp track soundtrack editor. I put in fake movie scores that hopefully entice people to like the film, and the movies sometimes get more money because of a good temp track. Some of the stuff I've worked on is the Star Trek First Contact. Insurrection. I worked on we helped get Rob Simonson on The Whale, so that's something I'm super proud of. Way
cool. Yeah. Dan, what movie are we talking about today? This is one of your favorite movies, I understand.
Well, Dragonslayer. For Vermithrax Pejorative on 4K. It was like the first thing that immediately popped into my mind because I was talking to Jordan, and it's like, what's the movie? And man, I mean, talk about a trip down memory lane like never before.
Just for starters, here comes a bad joke. Dragonslayer is not a hair band from 1981. It is also not a documentary about meth addicts in Modesto. No. Anyway, go ahead, Dan.
Oh my God, where to begin? I think like every other geek worth the salt, I am a major raving fan of Ray Harryhausen, and
we are too, actually.
And I grew up just watching Sinbad and every other amazing Ray like 50 million times, but before Dragonslayer, I had never seen a character live and breathe and convince me it was actually alive.
I was feeling that last night. Yes, watching this. Yes,
it was a game changer. It's actually also the first movie I ever in a theater where I sat through it twice in a row. I was so blown away at that theater in Marin County, San Francisco. It's just an amazing film. It's now out on 4K with one of the most spectacular restorations I've ever seen. The movie looks literally even different from when I saw it. And it looks incredible, and the effects are finally seen properly. This was such a hard movie to, it had come out, but it was just always kind of a muddy transfer.
Mm-hmm.
Even when it came out widescreen on DVD, it just never looked like or sounded like this. So I just, again, threw it in my vast accumulation of Blu-rays and with the friend, and I was just absolutely wiped off the floor by how much I love this movie and how there's still never been a film like it.
Yeah.
And also there's a great hour-long documentary that's part of the 4K that maybe goes a bit into technical to a fault, because I would have loved to have known about the location shooting and other stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, it's a masterpiece. It's really a genre masterpiece.
Yeah, and I remember seeing this as a kid, and like you said, I think it was on cable, but the effects just really stood out. Like, obviously, this is a movie called Dragonslayer, so no surprise, there's a dragon in it. And
oh yeah, we get a dragon. You will see a freaking dragon.
Spoiler: it might get slayed. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, it gets slayed in a way that I'm kind of, as opposed to just stabbed to death, it gets spectacularly annihilated. So I don't like watching animals getting stabbed, which is why I utterly hate Tarzan movies. Those ones with a passion. But this is like a totally spectacular. Although I felt terrible for the baby dragons. That wasn't fun to watch.
Oh, I just wanted to add to what Dan was saying. The first time I saw this was on VHS at a friend of my dad's house when I was a kid. It was the first time I'd ever seen a video projector. And I mean, this is the 3-color Spectrum video projector. And this is a pan and scan of Dragonslayer from that time period.
Yeah.
So that was the last time I think I actually watched it. And that, I mean, don't get me wrong, that blew me away as a kid alone. Just seeing the pan and scan projected for what was video projection back then. But yeah, man, I agree. When watching it, I watched this on Amazon in HD, and this was obviously part of the new transfer. And it was in widescreen as well. And I just was like, wow, I didn't realize how perfectly well shot this was anyway.
Yeah. And well, okay, so there's a lot of power, no surprise, behind the camera effects wise. So we have Phil Tippett. This is an ILM.
Yeah.
And just really, in between the Star Wars movies, Phil Tippett, Brian Johnson, Ken Ralston, big power in all directions.
Dennis Muren, supervising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Behind the camera, and just folks at the height of their craft employing go motion. Like we mentioned Harryhausen, right? Stop motion animation. And this was probably stop motion at its zenith before CGI came in and stole its thunder, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, this is, again, with the Go Motion Assist, which kind of allowed them to plot out the movements with the computer, and again, it gave a kind of fluidity that Harryhausen's stuff, as amazing as it was, just didn't have. I mean, even Ray Harryhausen, they invited him over to see what they were doing, and he was, suitably impressed. I think Clash of the Titans...
I didn't know Harryhausen saw this footage.
He was on the set.
Wow.
I mean, they invited him over.
But how genius was Go Motion? I mean, if I was Harryhausen, I almost would have seen that, went like, why the F didn't I think of that?
Well, computers, Jordan, computers.
But adding a blur to it, just a simple thing of adding a blur, a jerky blur in between to smooth it out and make it look more fluid. Like, I just say, how genius was that still? I still marvel over Go Motion, honestly.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, the coffin was slammed in a way because 1981 was also the same year the Clash of the Titans came out, which was, Ray's swan song. And there is one truly phenomenal. The Medusa sequence in that is one of the finest animation things I think it's ever been committed.
Oh, agree. Yeah.
But there's some bad stuff there that, Harryhausen actually didn't animate, and some stuff that didn't quite hold up. And as much as I absolutely love Clash of the Titans, I love that film.
Oh, cool.
But it's kind of like that was kind of going out, and that was obviously Ray's last movie, but it's kind of like out with the old and in with the new, and both ended up bombing.
Yeah.
Kind of like when the Phantom Menace came out after The Matrix, where it was like, oh God, why does this feel dated all of a sudden?
Right. Exactly.
The feeling we all wanted to ignore, at least,
But they're both great films.
I was going to bring one more thing into this. And I find this interesting that this movie came out in 1981 because I was just watching another little sword and sorcery movie from 1981 called Excalibur.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
John Borman. And what a year for sword and sorcery 1981 was,
I mean, Excalibur is, I think, one of the greatest films ever made. and
agree.
also, and hands down, the best Arthurian film ever made.
Yeah.
And it's just a masterpiece. And man, what I would do to see the uncut version or the stuff that was cut, from that film. But man, that movie just sends chills up my spine.
And I was watching this movie, and some of the locations I felt were similar in a few areas. And I'm sitting there going, I feel like I'm in the same world again all of a sudden. Because it was only a few nights ago I was rewatching Excalibur for the 30th time or whatever. I've watched it now. But
yes.
Wow. Well done.
That's it, Danny.
I remember the charm of making more than I remember Baruchatan and Lahina Malakali. I had my bar mitzvah.
It is Friday right now. It's appropriate. Yeah. No, I'm just joking.
That's awesome. So let's get into this movie. I just want to say there's a pretty amazing Alex North score here.
Yeah.
Oscar nominated, just amazing. Spartacus, Cleopatra, list goes on. What do you think about that, Dan?
Oh, it's an amazing score. I mean, I think it was Oscar nominated for this film. Let me see. As I dutifully search my ILM, no, my IMDb, not ILM. I'm blanking here.
Yeah, no pun intended there, ILM.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously Alex North was the guy who brought film modernism. With Streetcar Named Desire was one of the game-changing scores. Dragonslayer was nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah.
He did a score for 2001 that was rejected.
Yeah, it was thrown out. And actually some of it ended up in this movie. He definitely used some of the ideas from 2001 in the score.
Oh, I didn't think about that because I used to have that on CD even. Yeah, I didn't think about that. You're right. This is more operatic though.
Yeah, well, it's a completely impressionistic score. There's definitely melody, but it's a score that kind of really makes you work. It's not like, obviously Clash of the Titans is this beautiful, beautiful, sumptuous Lawrence Rosenthal score.
Right.
But this is a much more I mean, the thing I love about Dragonslayer, it's really probably the most believable fantasy film that's ever been made of this kind that has like a monster in it. Because
I agree.
You are in the you are in the dark ages watching this film. This movie takes such time creating an atmosphere, creating an absolutely believable world where you believe these things are alive. And again, North is, because again, it's kind of the whole dawn of Christianity, the fall of paganism. And North's score almost kind of takes this kind of barbaric, angry, impressionistic tone. And it's a score that really kind of has as much people who love it as people who hate it. It's a demanding listen outside of the film. I mean, and then that amazing, ending cue with the whole bomber plane thing through the clouds. But again, It's a very jagged, impressionistic, modernistic score. It's not about pleasantries. Even the kind of heroic theme is just kind of not in a straight line. It's really super daring. I couldn't even imagine having a tentpole film scored like this today. You wouldn't have it. Again, it's all got, and I love melody. I'm a big melodic guy, but again, it's just such a daring, unique score that really gives this film its identity.
It is very classic, like in the sense of chivalrous, kind of medieval kind of sounding, classical, but I guess almost too classic Hollywood almost, I guess.
At times, yeah.
Well, I mean,
I guess that's why you say it's daring, right?
Well, again, this is going into classical music, not film scoring, but really
yes, exactly. That's what I mean, exactly. Like
hardcore. Mm-hmm. And what's so interesting about the score, back in the day before CDs existed, this was kind of like a real in demand in terms of bootlegs. Like there were tape cassettes of this flying around, and then a label called Southern Cross put it out on CD, which was a real collector's item. But finally, La La Land Records, I think they put out 2 editions of this on 2 CDs, so that's where you can finally get the complete Alex North score. And again, it's such a kind of a jagged, almost assaultive score that, again, you really have to appreciate classical music.
Yeah,
that demands something from you.
But I mean, it's not distracting. I think it fits very well because the tone of this film is very interesting as well.
I guess it is Wagnerian at times in the classical score sense.
Yeah, especially at the end.
But almost even more. There was this one classical composer that was famous for medieval. He goes all the way back to medieval, and I can't remember his name now. First name was Thomas now it's pointless. I even brought it up.
Oh, look at
Never
that.
mind.
Go on the net, find it.
Yeah, exactly.
Google that, and while you're doing that,
Oh, yes, this magic machine right in front of me.
while you're doing that, we'll talk about how this movie begins. So
Yes. Let's dive right in with big wings and fire.
I want to say that real quick. This is a joint Paramount Disney production. Right,
Yeah,
Buena Vista distributed this as well, so it's interesting. This is a Disney movie in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a PG movie, which is interesting, and maybe we'll talk about it a little later, that choice. But we begin with this creepy scene of an old wizard in a dungeon casting a spell, doing his laundry. We don't know what. But he sees a vision, and it's just a horrible vision of death and horror, presumably. And then a group of villagers arrives, as they do in these movies, with torches, and they're led by a young man named Valerian.
Right.
They're basically trying to enlist his service to kill a dragon. I mean, we jump right into it from the beginning. And then we cut to his old servant, Hodge, who is played brilliantly by Sidney Bromley.
Now, you've seen him in a million... that guy doesn't have much luck. He got eaten by a werewolf in London.
Yeah, that's right. He did. He was also in a movie we talked about, The Fearless Vampire Killers.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very briefly, and Neverending Story. He pops up everywhere, and he's just grizzled with this beard and just this crazy looking dude, and he's always brilliant. And then we meet the sorcerer's apprentice, Galen.
You're right.
Who is played by Jordan
Peter Bignickel.
Yeah.
He is Vigo.
I was going to say the same thing. You took my joke on that one. From Ghostbusters 2.
Oh, my God,
2.
dude. But
Vigo, yes.
But he is also Stingo in the absolutely amazing Sophie's Choice.
Yes.
Brilliant actor.
How could I forget Sophie's Choice? Yes, him acting against,
Kevin Kline.
Meryl Streep and Kevin Kline. Power, yeah.
So good in that film.
And also from the TV show Ally McBeal
Ally
later
McBeal,
on.
equally as brilliant, some might say.
Yeah.
Not me, maybe, but... and also Jordan from Dallas, Texas, a place that Jordan holds.
Is he really? That's where we're from.
Yeah, very dear in his heart. So, hometown boy made good.
Bless his heart being from there.
He got out as quick as he could. All right.
Just like the rest of us, yes.
Anyway.
Bless his heart. He made something of himself outside of Texas.
Couldn't see him in a rodeo, dude.
He did. I mean, he rides a horse in this. Apparently, he was quite a horse rider. So, yeah.
He probably knows how to shoot guns,
a
too.
triple threat. Yeah. And so... Anyway, so this castle or whatever this is called Craggamore. It's in the wizard. His name is Ulrich, not Lars Ulrich from Metallica, but I was like that.
Yeah.
And
no
so
James Hetfield here.
Yeah. No. So that'd be cool if they had a Metallica score. I thought that could have elevated this. Maybe not.
I was just gonna say, I bet Led Zeppelin 4 sounds good over this whole movie.
I know.
And turns it on to something better once you light up and listen to Led Zeppelin 4.
If you play Led Zeppelin 4 backward over Dragonslayer, bro, weird things happen, man.
Remember, if you're gonna slay a dragon, always play side one of Led Zeppelin 4.
There we go.
Exactly, man. Yeah, exactly. Like it's to paraphrase Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yes.
And Ulrich is played by Ralph Richardson, stalwart English Shakespearean actor who's fantastic. He's just amazing in this movie. He is a wizard to me.
Yes, he never worked before this movie or after. No, just kidding.
And so he has a bit of PTSD from these visions he was seeing, and then he agrees to see these villagers. But before then, he tells Galen that basically he's foreseen his death. And I love whenever he goes to meet these folks and this sort of pomp and circumstance of being a wizard, that he puts on these robes and he's like choosing the right staff. And just this film has a lot of humor in it. It's really dry humor.
It wins you over quickly with that, at least.
And then Ralph Richardson basically says, listen, I work with this gang of dwarfs. And they can get the job done. They screw it up. Now, I just had to make the reference to the other amazing 1981 film starring Ralph Richardson, Time Bandits.
Time Bandits.
Oh my God! Yet another fantasy movie from that year.
And again, this is the joy of not being visually on your show, where I can just suddenly completely dive into IMDb and seem a lot smarter than I am.
No, that's we side reference all the time on this show.
Smoke and mirrors. Pause while I look something up. Oh, that's the name of the game. Oh, yeah.
You should have heard us on War of the Worlds, where Anthony said, "Let's pause here and analyze this." They spent 1,000,000 years to plan this whole alien attack.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my God! Think of like all these 1981 movies that were just so influential for. I'm older than you did, so I'm 58. But when you think about it, Time Bandits, Dragonslayer. I mean,
but you also had Brian De Palma's movie Blowout even that year. I mean,
yeah. That was the one where the dragon kills everybody at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
It ate Nancy Allen, and she's screaming, and he used the video. He used the audio for that later on in a movie.
Yeah.
But hell, what a year for movies, 1981. And then Galaxy of Terror even came out that year. I mean, my God, it's just
Yeah. It's a year for movies, and Galaxy Terror came out.
Yeah, and then
also
in 1982, which Mark Altman has made a whole documentary about, which hopefully is going to come out, which is even another amazing year. But oh my God, I mean,
1982 is a year I always constantly pick apart. 1982, that's another podcast, honestly.
Yeah.
We could do a whole podcast just about movies, reel by reel.
I mean, oh my God, these 2 years. These 2 years back to back are just such classics.
83 as well, for that matter, had a lot of interesting movies as well after that. I mean,
but you know what's an interesting movie is Dragonslayer from 1981.
Oh yeah, sorry, back to that.
What really wins me over is the humor. This is like the adventures of Gandalf's younger brother here. It's played for comedic effect a lot with his wizard, and I just love how he's kind of like over the wizarding or whatever. He just doesn't give a damn, and that's so, I don't know, that's so endearing.
It's as endearing as the Sword in the Stone Disney cartoon that we grew up with, even. Like on that level, even though this is the darker version of it. This is way darker.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole point is that he's the last one, and Vermithrax is the last one, and they basically have to annihilate each other to give way to the Spanish Inquisition, or
exactly,
even something far worse than paganism.
All the wonderful things and we'll get into that later. This movie has a lot to say beyond being a fun, just action and fantasy film. It does try to sneak in some interesting concepts in there, but I love the idea. Like, he's got to put on this show like this is medieval times or something for these, or he's the Wizard of Oz or something for these villagers. Like, he's casting all these spells to start fires and just really show them, hey, I'm a wizard, you're getting your money's worth. And so this delegation shows up with some dragon scales and a tooth. And I love how he's like, did you try the Meredith sisters or Rimbad? I heard he killed a dragon once. He's real reluctant here.
Yeah.
And then we find out that they are sacrificing virgins to dragons, as you do, right?
They talk about the lottery.
The lottery, which is not...
By the way, this movie opens in West Virginia with people constantly talking about the lottery.
you went there before I could.
Damn. Okay, sorry, Dan.
It's a bunch of meth addicts playing Mega Millions, and
she'll let the guests have that joke.
We can cut that in if you want to do it, Dan. I don't care.
Well,
we can redo it with you saying it if you want right now, and we can edit it your way.
But the dragon, as Dan mentioned, and I love this, it's Vermithrax pejorative, right? Which is a funny joke in itself. And off topic, but as a nod to this movie, that dragon was mentioned in an episode of Game of Thrones. So does this exist in the Game of Thrones universe, TV universe? I don't know.
I don't. Maybe I don't remember that, but
Game of Thrones was clearly influenced by this movie.
Yes.
My God.
Right, it's influenced by this movie.
1981 played a serious influence on Game of Thrones, clearly.
And George R.R. Martin even cited this as one of his favorite fantasy movies ever made, so no doubt. But I mean, this movie has influenced a lot of people. Guillermo del Toro, tons of people have in years after this film came out, it sort of grew a cult following. I think a lot of people saw this when they were younger and just marveled at the effects and the style. And so it's influential any way you want to slice it, for sure. Mm-hmm. But I will say this. Now, we talked about Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And how a lot of the American actors, struggled with accents. And just off the bat here, I like how for most of the movie, several of our leads are American, right?
Yeah.
They really do not attempt a Costner-esque accent. There are times in which they do, but normally they're kind of talking in some mid-Atlantic they're more busied with acting instead of trying to do an accent, which I like.
But there's no look, mistletoe.
Yeah, no, side plug. If you pick up the Arrow 4K of Robin Hood that just came out overseas, I am waxing rhapsodic about Michael Kamen, along with a lot of very amazing musicians.
Oh.
So if you pick up that 4K, you can watch me rave about how amazing Michael Kamen's score is.
Hell yeah, Michael Kamen. Oh, may he rest in peace. But damn.
Yeah, okay. Back to Dragonslayer.
Back to Dragonslayer.
Already in progress.
So we have Josh Hallam, who plays Tyrion. Is that another Game of Thrones nod? I don't know. And he was in a bunch of stuff. Flash Gordon, list goes on. And he plays a member of the King's Guard. This movie's Sheriff of Nottingham, basically. Yeah. And he doubts that this wizard is up to the job. He comes in and sort of crashes the party.
He's a real dick, is all I can say.
He's a real asshole. He plays this movie's...
dick!
Exactly. It's Piccolius. You dick! As he... It's about to stab him. I'm sorry. Oh, spoilers ahead.
He plays this movie's ye old asshole, and he does not believe in all this magic and mumbo jumbo. And the wizard has this crystal amulet. That's the film's MacGuffin. And the wizard agrees to a test. And I really there are moments when the cinematography just really stands out. And then there's this sort of scene where the camera sort of, follows this dagger. And the test is that the wizard says, Ulrich says, stab me. You cannot kill me. I will not die.
The suspense here did kill me. Seriously, no joke. No pun intended. But yeah.
Am I wrong? And am I wrong in that there are some, and later on too, some sort of overtones with, I guess maybe Empire or Jedi, as far as it just reminded
Empire came out before this, and they basically used what they had learned in Empire Strikes Back with the Tauntauns, for the animation for this. But this is after Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, but then the concept of that, when you kill a Jedi, then come back into ghost form, sort of thing, and the whole you cannot strike me down. Strike me down, you will not kill me.
Funny you bring that up. This movie was made by George Lucas's friends. From film school, USC, all the way back. The director Matthew Robbins, am I correct?
Andy? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Hal Barwood. I think that I hope I got their names right.
Yeah, and a lot of
there could have been influence there. Who knows? Maybe they influenced Lucas though, honestly, because Lucas's whole hero's journey thing I heard came after Star Wars, kind of more. Anyway, that's another story altogether, but discuss amongst yourself. No.
It came out in Bill Moyer's interviews years later when he had to come up with something. I don't know.
And from what I understand, it was Lucas basically going, "Oh yeah, that's what I meant to say."
Hero's journey is what I was thinking about at the time.
Of course.
Anyway.
So
Tyrion stabs Ulrich and he dies, which is fantastic. The beginning of the film, we begin with the wizard's death here. And this whole scene where he's stabbed is told through the eyes. You see the eyes of these actors. This is acting chops. It's fantastic. And I will say that's one of the things that elevates this movie is the fact there are scenes of just true acting.
Yeah. But he says that spell, was that to help him cope with the pain at the same time? Or
because he's got the whole
or because he's going to return later on.
Exactly. So he kind of
in a new form.
Yeah, he does that as it's kind of like the wizard version of checking your baggage.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned Star Wars, Anthony. I mean, Star Wars though, it's older. It goes way before Star Wars. I guess it's like an older legend than Star Wars. It just goes way back before then. Honestly,
I mean, this is based on the producer writers. They based this on Sir Gawain and the Green Knight and the Legends of Saint George. I mean, this is a classic tale of dragon slaying. That's what it is. But it has an interesting plot in the middle, and I mean, we'll get into the plot as we talk about it here. But it's very interesting. This is a tale about slaying a dragon. The wizard's dead, and now the sorcerer's apprentice has to come and pick up his mantle and then go slay this dragon, basically. Because now his master's dead, and nobody knows what to make of this. The villagers leave disappointed.
This is a classic, simple archetype as well, which is beautiful.
Exactly. And then there's a great scene where there's a bunch of brooms that are cleaning, and he has to stop them, and they're just all this magic is happening. It's fantastic. And then So the villagers leave disappointed, and there's this amulet that keeps haunting him. The wizard's amulet, and it's glowing, and there's a wonderful scene where he tries to hide it, and it keeps reappearing. The amulet is
like
following.
It's calling to him, I guess.
Exactly. And he's like, my precious. And so he takes the amulet and he goes with the villagers. And then he and Hodge, like I said, leave. They go see the villagers, and Galen already has some sort of prowess as a magician. He's, he can use force magic or whatever to
he can levitate a Benoit egg.
Yeah, there, exactly.
Yeah.
He
can levitate it and hard-boiled at the same time, I think.
He's good at parties, but I don't know if he can slay a dragon,
Yeah.
And so great use of the Scottish locations here. Oh my God. I would have been fine with 20 minutes of just them walking.
Oh, yeah. Beautifully shot in the 2:3:5 scope aspect ratio. Exactly.
Yeah. And going back to what Dan said about the world of this movie, I just love the sets everywhere, the castles, everything looks lived in. It looks archaic.
This is like Eat Your Heart Out Willow, because this is years before Willow, even 8 years before Willow. And it feels real. Like even before Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, this movie's been out, and the same year as Excalibur, which also feels real. Talk about verisimilitude. Once again, that word that comes up all the time in our podcast.
Yeah, you believe the story because part of that's you believe what you see. You believe this is actual the Middle Ages sometime. After the...
Whereas Ridley Scott said a few times, like, you believe, they still need to use a toothbrush and a comb at some point.
Well, I don't believe anyone's using a toothbrush or a comb in this movie, which is what makes it authentic. I just picture everyone smelling really bad.
Yeah.
But another reason this works is because it limits the fantastical. You don't have like wood sprites showing up or other kind of fairies or goblins. It kind of limits itself. Okay, here's a dragon, here's magic. So it's not like throwing the other stuff at Willow or nothing. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah,
but that makes it real because again, it's about the death of magic essentially, or magic creatures, and it seems more real because of that.
Yeah, it doesn't ask you to believe in ogres as well,
right? Yeah,
or anything like that. It presents it as historical. And especially when it introduces Christianity, burgeoning Christianity at this time, it's like, okay, this is what happened pre the modern era. Dragons were a thing, and this is how people dealt with it. And the politics of this movie are fascinating to me because we see the whole virgin sacrifice situation. It's basically each year during, I forgot if it's the equinox or the solstice, they sacrifice a virgin. This is done via a lottery. And we begin to see, this comes up later, but we begin to see this disparity in wealth, right? The rich people, their daughters don't seem to be taken in this lottery to be sacrificed.
It's interesting. I don't recall them saying it's every year. You just don't know when. This lottery just seems to be something they do here and there, but it doesn't seem to be yearly, at least from what I remember. There's no timeline. It's just like a constant thing that's happening.
Yeah.
If it was like yearly, they probably wouldn't bother to come see Ralph Richardson. But what's interesting is that, in that one of the really like, holy shit, I can't believe this isn't a PG movie is when the force magic the Christian force magic definitely does not work for Ian McDiarmid, who was incinerated.
Yeah.
Because he calls Vermithrax some very bad names, and the dragon doesn't appreciate that.
Yeah.
But you're seeing like a guy blasted with like a blow, and it's like, whoa, again, I'm going to kind of side trip, but again, Disney only did co-produced two movies with Paramount, both of which were bombs, not artistic, but Popeye. And then this. And again, when you see like Popeye, literally them dragons having exceptionally like Lucio Fulci leg of princess.
Yeah.
I remember in the theater saying, "Oh, I can't believe I'm watching this." That it's like R-rated gore. It's very gory and it's very real in its gore. And you can only imagine like the Disney executives watching this and going, "Oh my God, we didn't sign up for this."
Yeah.
It's really pretty damn gory. Which again only makes it seem real.
Like I'm going to hear directly from Jack Valente at the MPAA.
Right, yeah.
And I wonder if there's more that's on the cutting room floor, if there's a rated R version out there. I
think there has to be.
Yeah.
I think there has to be. And I think they even alluded to it, that there was probably a lot more graphic than they even intended on being with that.
Yeah, because we see the first of the virgin sacrifices. We see the back of the head of the dragon and just the maiden engulfed in flame, which is suggestive enough. You're like, damn,
Yeah.
Already we're 15 minutes into the movie. And then we see Galen accompanying the villagers back to the village. And we see a very cheeky scene, right? With Valerian bathing. And then Galen jumps in. And what does he see, folks? Underwater.
What do we see?
Boobies!
Her bits in pieces is what we see. Right there in the water, all out in the buff, her breakfast everywhere.
He is a she, and this is a particularly gender intolerant era.
We've been led to believe she's a guy the whole time, that she's a bloke the whole time, and now it's a Sheila, it's a girl. Damn, I lost my accent. My accent went to Australian all of a sudden.
Well, one thing that's interesting that's on the documentary that I actually didn't read, they actually pitched her voice down. And when they reveal it, she's a woman, Caitlin Clark, unfortunately is no longer with us, they brought her normal voice.
That's fascinating. I wondered how she did that. I thought, wow, that's really good acting if she did it like that.
Pitch in the mix.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so, like I said, this is a very, gender intolerant era, but the whole reason of her living as a boy, and I like this because a lot of movies don't really give a reason. This happens in a number of films. There's a very real reason here. Her father from birth, apparently this has been going on her whole life, right? So her father from birth has basically had her living as a boy to prevent her from being put into the lottery. And I like that. That's
feels real
smart.
once again, actually, honestly. And I like this too aspect of it, that the fact that she's hiding as a boy or a guy in this Yentl-like fashion.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Bad reference. Yentl years later reference.
But I mean, this happens in a lot of movies, but I like the reasoning here.
But it makes it feel real. No joke, actually. Hell, in old Shakespearean plays, in the old ancient period of Shakespeare plays, men would play the female parts. It was just male dominated all the way back then and beyond Shakespeare.
Yeah. And so Galen sees this, but he swears he won't tell. And then Galen, looking in the water, gets a premonition from this amulet that Tyrion's about to kill Hodge with an arrow. And so Lannister always pays his debts. That's what I was thinking here. I couldn't get that out of my head. This is so Game of Thrones. But Hodge basically is shot with the arrow. He finds him as Hodge is dying. And he says, take your master's ashes. They need to be taken to a burning lake. Burning water, right? Remember that, folks.
Oh, yes.
And
very important.
Galen tries some party magic, but can't save his life. And it's sad. It's sad because I loved Hodge. He's so cute, Anyway.
It's a sad moment.
Then we go right to the Dragonslayer. We're not wasting time, folks. We go right to the Dragonslayer. It's a tiny entrance for a dragon, right? I think.
Very small.
This dragon can squeeze. That's the problem with dragons, guys. They can squeeze into space just about the size of their head. So make sure you get those holes plugged, because this thing is like small enough, barely small enough for them to crawl through. But whatever, who cares? It's a movie.
You could hide a dragon in your closet, man.
Be careful, guys.
Be careful.
So this dragon does Pilates, and then we see the post and the chains, and I love this post. And I love all the dragon heads and the imagery and the effigies of dragons in this movie.
Yeah, that's great. A lot of skulls and everything.
And so Galen goes in, and he sees dragon scales, and he sees some smoke, and then he runs out and says, "Yep, there's a dragon. That'll be $300 for me to come out, and another $3,000 for me to kill the dragon."
Sorry about that.
I thought is that a real dragon? Oh, coming through here? Oh. Yeah.
Anyway, so then he closes the entrance to the Dragonslayer with some magic or force magic, and everyone in the village celebrates. Movie over, right? That was quick. Yeah. Roll credits.
What a celebration. Yeah. They have a barbecue.
Well, that doesn't really work because he basically causes this massive cave-in, and they think the dragon's gone, but and that's the thing is that the Galen character's kind of portrayed in a kind of funny, almost inept way up to a certain point where he's kind of got to become the real hero, and but this comes later in the film, obviously, but at that point he's still the comic relief, as it were.
And that's what I like. It's like he makes short work of this dragon. Everybody's happy. And then Valerian finally gets to put on her dress and have her coming out party. She has a gender reveal at the big dance. and I love this because
you went there. Andy.
Anyway, I love this because there's a lot of guys who were like kind of, thought this Valerian dude was hot, and now they're relieved. Their feelings of confusion are abated, and they're like, whew.
There was all these guys that were insecure about their sexuality, and they were looking at Valerian the whole time as a man going, I don't know why. I think she's so hot. I mean, he's so hot. Or she's so hot, whatever. Yeah,
but there's nothing wrong with that.
And now I feel better about myself because I was insecure about my stupid male heterosexuality before, but...
it was a product of the time. I'm just saying, you just see some guys relieved, like, phew.
See, now if you made the film, it would be like male virgins who are being sacrificed, and they have to dress as girls. So that if they totally made it today, this is what they would do.
Young male virgins being sacrificed. Yeah. It would be Fellini-esque.
I would love a new Ghostbusters version of Dragonslayer gender swap. I have no problem with that. I think it'd be funny. Chris Hemsworth is in it somehow. I don't know.
Anyways.
Chain up Chris Hemsworth.
That's $1 million right there in box office.
Women, there'd be lines around the block for that. Come on, they would want the women would want it. Some of the men would.
Magic Mike 4, the Dragon Slayer. Anyway, so even the mean girls in the village approve. They're like, okay. They're like, okay, we're cool. This is when we get a real commentary on religion in this film.
Yeah.
Christianity is spreading through. We have the pagan eras, and Christianity is a new thing vying for believers amidst all this old magic.
Once again, too, this reminds me of Excalibur again, this weird connection they bring up in this movie, because they do this in Excalibur also the same year. But anyway.
Oh, yeah. No, it's absolutely right. I think that's fantastic. And that gives part of the realism to this film that, it's interesting how they're basically, like Dan said, this is like out with the old, in with the new.
Yeah. John Borman says on the commentary of the DVD Excalibur, he calls it, this is the coming of the age of reason.
Yeah, that even pays off 100-fold at the end of the movie. But one thing that sort of bugs me is the pagans are speaking Latin, right?
Yeah.
The Latin is the magical language, and the church is speaking English. I don't get this. Wait a minute. You know what I mean? Anyway, it's a stupid thing, but I was just like, I don't know. Anyway, I would have liked to have heard some Norse or...
But Latin is the romance language, man.
Yeah, I know. It's the language of love.
And they have a scene with Galen and Johnny Ringo spinning a gun. And
yeah.
Just,
And so anyways, so Tyrion crashes the party because he's an asshole, and and he takes Kaelin to see the king, and the king is very unimpressed by his magic, and he says, how this whole dragon thing happened? He's like, my brother Yorick the Stupid went to go kill the dragon and incurred its wrath, and then that's why we have these problems. And I came up with this whole lottery thing. And this is all my doing. You're just an apprentice. He takes the amulet and imprisons him for basically provoking the dragon. He doesn't believe it. This is going to happen again.
I just want to see the dragon negotiation. Like, how the hell do you negotiate this with the dragon? I mean, do you sit down with the agents from ICM?
I know.
I mean, what were these negotiations like?
The dragon sent their lawyers, and then the king lawyered up, and
Vermi, baby. I got an idea.
Listen, Your Honor, my client may breathe fire, but he's serious in these allegations.
Okay, what if we give him 2 virgins a year, okay? No, one virgin.
Yeah, I didn't realize I was like Robert Shapiro doing him all of a sudden.
The dragon wants points. Look, that's non-negotiable. And so then anyway, the king's daughter comes to see Galen, the princess, and she believes that this whole system is just like everyone else does. And then Galen somehow has this knowledge. He's like, well, you know what? Everyone knows that the rich families pay off the king, and then it's only like the poor families who get their daughters sacrificed. And then she's like, no, it's not true, and whatever. And then we see the king, and I love this, trying to turn lead into gold with the amulet. And I love that, because if I were a king, That's probably what I would be doing with the magic amulet. First thing, day one. And then what happens?
Right.
Does anyone know what happens?
I'm sorry. I ran out to get a beer. I'm sorry. What happened?
Well, thanks, Jordan. What happens?
Where were we?
Jordan, 100% committed to the podcast.
I'm sorry.
An earthquake hits the village.
Oh, this part, yes.
And then the princess finds out that she's really being exempted from this lottery. She frees Galen, right? And then Galen escapes on his horseback. And like I said, Peter McNichol gets to use those horse riding skills. He gets that extra paycheck for doing his stunts. Yeah.
Yeah. He looks comfortable on a horse. Honestly, he does. I mean,
oh, yeah.
I've only ridden a horse once, but I realize it only helps if the horse is tame anyway.
You're riding wild horses, Jordan? What is this?
Yeah. That's another podcast. Hey, Jordan on horses back in Texas. Yeah. No, I'm sorry.
Jordan was breaking horses before he started to get into the podcast business.
No, I just rode a horse. Anyway.
It was a pony, and it was around a circle at the fair.
Okay, yeah.
Then we see the Catholic priest, and he goes to the lair of the dragon. And again, who is this Catholic priest, everybody?
It's the Emperor.
Ian McDiarmid.
The Emperor himself.
Make it so.
But the Catholic Church actually cloned him, so he shows up in the sequel of Dragonslayer.
Oh, I would love a sequel.
Bring it.
The dragon's not really dead, guys.
I would love that.
You thought you killed the priest, dragon. And top of it, you're my daughter.
It's a weekend at Bernie's, and they have to take the dragon to this big luau. And they're pretending he's alive. Anyway, so
I just don't get how Albert Salmi, who plays the Smithy father, is suddenly inspired by watching this priest get fried and prove totally incapable. Okay, I'm gonna do this now.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, well, I don't think that would be exactly inspirational to take up the priesthood.
Yeah, exactly. I saw that.
I guess this magic really doesn't work at all.
Hey, some people see an opportunity where others see failure. He's just like, you know what?
You know, the one sad thing I forget watching this scene and watching it in high def was just like how young Ian McDiarmid was back then, because we're always seeing him in the Emperor makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and he's a baby back then.
Oh, totally.
Movie,
yeah.
You know,
and we talked about the movie War of the Worlds recently. Yeah. And in the 53 version, we see a priest get torched by...
Oh, totally. It's a total homage to that sequence.
I was thinking that same thing. It reminded me of that same thing. Exactly. Yeah, the 53 War of the Worlds.
Well, you see just a priest get torched, and here it beautifully gets burned by fire. And that is, I guess, the commentary on religion in this film. I think this movie satirizes religion as much as it tells a dragon story, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So then, so Tyrion tells the blacksmith that, hey, your daughter's now eligible for the lottery, now that she's no longer a boy. And then the king's guards are looking for Galen. And Galen, the blacksmith is hiding Galen, and they decide to make a weapon. This really awesome spear.
It is cool looking.
Well, the spear's been there. He's basically, it was like the last time they tried to stop the dragon, and he's hidden it in the stream.
Oh, that's right. It was just kind of a prototype he made or something, I guess. Or
it's the thing, and then he pulls it out of the lake, saying, finest I ever made.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. He already had it made. He just kind of modified it. That's all it was.
Yeah. It's modified by magic.
Now, I wouldn't I personally wouldn't keep an iron spear at the bottom of a lake, but to each his own. What kind of blacksmth is this guy anyway? So then,
what about the rust? I mean, is it made of vinegar? This lake? I don't know.
I'm going to kill the dragon with tetanus.
No,
that's why.
That's awesome.
That's what helps. The tetanus helps. It helped penetrate the dragon's scales.
Exactly. It's a good one. So anyway, but Galen needs the amulet, probably to get the rust off, to your point. So they are picking, I love this scene, they're picking a maiden to be sacrificed. And they have this big lot, literally a lottery with golden tiles, in a bucket.
Yeah. It's where it gets political, this scene. Almost.
Oh, totally.
once again, you see the class separation in this scene. It's kind of like done on a big level so much where you're almost just kind of like, why wasn't this seems like Oscar level almost,
It's like a Trump's dream election.
Yeah, exactly.
This is like, eat your heart out, Warren Beatty Reds, this scene.
Everyone loves the dragon. We got this dragon. We got these tiles. You know the tiles, everybody. We love the tiles, don't we? Everybody loves the tiles. They love the dragon, right? And so, I love how the people are like, stir the tiles.
Yeah. Hey, how come Ivanka's never been brought up for the lottery? Well, there's a logical explanation for that. The reason is Ivanka's always been passed up for everything. She was the last picked on ball teams, that kind of thing. It's just the way the chips fall with her. That's all there is. That's all there is to it.
My daughter Ivanka's so dumb, never went in spelling bee. She's always the last to be picked. Sorry, Anyway, so
even the dragons pick her last. Yes.
We see this to me is like another really great kind of subversion of Disney with this horrific fate. Because basically this character is like the goody two shoes princess right out of a Disney movie, who gets ripped to pieces, and she looks like a Disney princess essentially.
Yeah.
They're like, why does she sing better than the rest of us? It's not fair.
Exactly. So again, it's like one more kind of very graphic slap in the face to Disney.
Like, why do I sound like Lou Reed when I sing, but she gets to sound like Julie Andrews every fucking time? No.
And so, but you're right about the disparity between class here. Clearly, you have the hoi polloi out there expecting one of their daughters to be picked, and the king's daughter is supposed to be in the lottery, but she never gets picked. But then, they pick the king's vizier or whoever he is picks the tile, and it's the princess. And then we find out that the princess had the tiles changed and had her name put on every single one of them so that she would be picked, so that she would be a martyr.
And it took her all night to do that too.
Yeah.
Because she
she just gets okay. I'll get the little knife out, and like the entire night I got to hit all these.
Yeah, exactly. She had a little tile party with the girls, and they're all covered with glitter. They're all covered with glitter, and it's something they saw off Etsy,
Yeah, it's like an old Tupperware party between wives in the 70s.
And then the king says, and this is why I sent you to college? And you came back with all these crazy ideas? And so anyway, she's sacrificing herself for her people. And which is fantastic because it's something her father never would have done. She is the virtuous one. And she goes out there and makes a big show. All my people, I'm sacrificing myself for you. So I guess that's noble. But I don't think nobility seeks applause. I don't know. Anyway.
She's just basically, I thought that was kind of noble of her. It makes her more likable, the fact that she's sacrificing herself.
Yeah.
Well, again, it makes it all the more horrific what happens to her. It's like genuinely shocking.
Like
moment.
You said, Lucio Fulci.
It's not the most shocking thing in the film. It's what happens to her.
It's like George Romero level violence, like Dawn of the Dead. Yeah.
But guys, what we're watching here is an actual plot happening. We're actually watching a plot in a movie about somebody killing a dragon that has political undertones, that is talking about the people in the village, and basically, I think.
Yeah, deep stuff here in a movie like this.
Yeah, I would almost, in a way, if this movie can be improved, and I don't know if this would make more sense to not even see the dragon till the end, and you think this is all a subterfuge by the king or some ruse to maintain power every time he raises taxes or something.
No, honestly, I think the script is like Twilight Zone level writing.
Yeah.
I mean, classic Twilight Zone level. Charles Beaumont, we're talking Matheson level,
It's a good script because we could have just had a story where someone's killing a dragon. But no, we have all this other stuff going on. But it doesn't hold the movie up. It moves the plot forward, which is what I love. It creates that world like Dan was talking about. There's a world going on here. There's politics. You can step outside of the screen and this world still exists with the people living under this oppressive king, but him exerting his power weirdly through this dragon lottery.
Classic Twilight Zone 2 limited its stuff. If classic Twilight Zone did a dragon story, a Dragonslayer story, they would do it like this.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. There isn't
and it would still be glorious in black and white even.
And so the king goes to Galen, he's like, hey, here's the amulet that I stole from you. Please go save my daughter. Which is it. And I just think that's fascinating because he's just like, you know what? All's forgiven. You know, now that he has something really to lose, he has some skin in the game. You know, he wants the dragon really dead. I wonder if he even cared if it was dead before. He's like, you know, what's with these dragons? They're just, you know, they're a hindrance. They're a nuisance, but, you know, they leave us alone. What, you know, we can live with the dragons. It's not a big deal. They're noisy neighbors, but whatever. Mm-hmm. And now he's down with the dragon killing. So Galen uses that amulet to cast a spell on the aforementioned weapon. And then Valerian is out while he's doing this, collecting dragon scales. I love the dragon scales in this movie. I love them.
I want to own one as a prop.
Absolutely real.
I want a prop replica.
It makes sense. There's a dragon. It has scales. It probably sheds them. And this is a sheddy dragon. He needs to go to a dermatologist. There's a lot of scales everywhere. It's not natural.
We saw early on how they used them for firewood even, you know, like.
Yeah. But anyway, so this is when, like Dan mentioned earlier, she sees a baby dragon. You're like, oh shit, now there's baby dragons? Oh, wait, this is a different thing. This isn't an old dragon like everyone said. This is very much a fertile dragon who's having more dragons, and now the stakes are like up. You know, they're reproducing. They've gotten in your walls, and now they're reproducing. And it's, you know, everyone, run for the hills, because this is bad now.
To quote Megaforce, even in the 80s.
Dragons have babies, even in the 80s.
I mean, we had aliens later on. We had plurals of everything later in the 80s. That's the thing. We had ghoulies.
Yeah.
Gremlins.
Again, this wasn't a problem, but then, you know, the magicians basically say, okay, well, we can't have dragon pills anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I admire this dragon. It's a single mom raising some babies. You know what I mean? It's tough. It's tough out there.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you feel sorry for the drag. I felt sorry for it. You know, I mean, and I like the kind of offhanded thing where Galen goes, "Oh, then we'll have to kill him too." You know, it's like, yeeks.
Now we're killing.
So basically, he's killing babies, man. I don't care what they do, but you know what I'm saying? It's like it kind of adds like a kind of another yuck factor. Like, okay, well, we're gonna watch little babies getting killed. I don't care what kind of babies they are; they're still babies, and that's something that kind of really hit me as well when I was watching it. You know, this kind of very grim realism to the film, even with something like that.
Yeah, it makes the dragon look organic, like it's a real thing. Yeah. Like, it's one thing to shoot a bear, but when you find out it's a mother bear with babies, now that has moral consequences. Wait, it's just protecting its babies, or it's just feeding its young here.
Yeah, you see, it would have survived if it was cocaine Dragonslayer. Then it would have.
I'd pay to see dragon. That.
Wait, is the dragon on cocaine or is the Slayer on cocaine?
Oh wow!
I mean, either one would be interesting. Like the Slayer's needs coke before, you know. All right, I'm gonna do okay, man. Okay, let's do this. Let's go slay some dragons, man. Okay, man. All right, man. You got your sword, man? Where's the sword? We're not using a sword, man. We're using a spear. Remember that spear? Where is it, man? Oh, fuck, man. I can't find it.
I don't know, man. We need some more coke over here, bro. I don't know, man.
It's not coke. It's the dragon dust from the last
dragon
we're snorting.
Dragon dust kills, folks. Don't do it.
Well, I don't care where the dragon dust came from. It's making me paranoid. No.
Public service announcement, don't do dragon dust. Anyway, so then I love how there's baby dragons. That's cool. But then Valerian, she makes a shield for Galen out of dragon scales. And that is...
Yeah. Thank the maker.
Yeah, that is how you know a lady really likes you. Is when she makes you a shield of dragon scales.
Yeah, that's like giving you a sweater for Christmas or something like that. Or she knows it's your color because it matches your eyes kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. And then she's like, I knew you mentioned that time that you were going to slay a dragon, so I thought, I would get you this dragon shield. And it's like, oh, that's sweet.
That's right. It's in brown, your favorite color.
It's in your favorite color. I got it at Bed Bath & Beyond. It was on sale. And then, so she thinks that he's in love with the princess. And then he's like, no, but I'm in love with you. And they have this whole moment and kiss. And it works. It works.
Yeah, it was sweet, I thought.
Yeah, I would have liked a little more of that scene, a little bit more. But we have places to be in this movie, and I get that. But they're now a couple.
They're going together now, right?
They're going steady. They're pretty exclusive.
Going steady.
And now he obviously figures out the ultimate way to just completely stop the lottery. You wonder why no horny guy in that village ever thought about how to stop the lottery as soon as you hit the legal age of 12. Whatever, whenever people were getting married back then.
I hadn't thought of that. Do you think they actually consummated it? I was wondering.
Of course they did. Of course they did. You basically just have a sense that, okay, well, I've got nothing more to worry about. You don't send any kind of worry about her because the dragon can sniff that shit out.
Yeah, exactly.
And when I was this guy's age, I did not have this much luck. I'm just saying. That's all I'm just going to say. It wasn't that easy for me. I was just like, he used to be my best friend, guy friend. Now, we used to play Magic together, and now you're a girl. Oh,
yeah. But for somehow Jordan did party magic, like he did magic at parties, and that prevented him from getting laid somehow. I don't know how that worked. But anyway,
it was those balloons I was making. They didn't look right. I blame the balloons. Okay, Anthony. The shapes, they didn't work. Is all I'll say.
So I guess that makes sense because Galen trots into town and is like, we got one who's no longer eligible for the lottery. So he has this, a shield of scales. And so they have the princess out there lashed to a pole. Then Tyrion shows up, as he's wont to do in this movie, and he attacks Galen. And then they fight.
Oh, this dick.
He's a dick.
This guy.
What an asshole.
You know what? I don't like his hair. It's perfect. It's too perfect. It's like John Peters perfect. I don't know. It's just something about him. Yeah, he's the John Peters of this movie, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, he's got like, speaking of Megaforce, he's got a Megaforce coif. He's just missing a medieval headband,
He does have
But I just love it in the big fight sequence. When the prince is basically saying, "Oh, boys, just stop it, let me get killed," and then she screams, and after this big ass sword fight or spear fight, he's like behind the pole, and it's like. And Galen is just like, fuck this, I don't have time, fuck you. And nails him right through the wood because he just doesn't have time for the bullshit. I just love that. Again, that's another like, whoa, it's not usually in these kind of sword fights, they're fighting and, no one, like, there's no stop, before the bad guy gets it, it's part of it. But in this, there's like a clear opportunity where, he may not or whatever, and he just like, fuck it.
It's like Indiana Jones shooting that guy with the scimitar. It's just like, I don't have time to
but they really dwell upon his death, which is pretty well deserved at this point. You just really hate him. He's such a dick.
You're glad to see him go because he's such a dick. He's just
And it's good. It's good dying acting because he looks legitimately surprised. Like, what just happened? Oh wait, I'm dying.
I mean, this guy killed his. He killed
his dad.
He killed his dad. I mean, he killed the magician at the beginning. Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised Peter McNichol's Galen character is not more pissed off.
Yeah.
Peckinpah style pissed off.
Yeah.
But maybe that would have been much. I don't know.
Well, that's kind of the point in the film where he really becomes a man. And, okay, enough of this bullshit. It's hero time, and we're not going to be funny anymore.
Yeah. I'm no longer the sidekick. I am the hero.
Exactly. Yeah, so he goes out to slay the dragon, and we see, speaking of baby dragons, the princess who ran into the cave to confront the dragon. I don't know what she's expecting. I really can't get inside her head, to be honest. But she's free, and she runs right into the cave. And then what do we see? What happens to the princess, Dan?
Well, it's like a princess time. She's been jumped by the dragons, and that's it.
Yeah. So we see she's being eaten. This is a PG movie, guys. She's being eaten. I guess she's not alive. She's dead. But eaten by baby dragons. Baby dragons are munching on her corpse.
Yeah.
With big gobs of flesh.
They slowly eat her foot off even, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what they're eating.
So God, it looks like Dawn of the Dead. It's funny, Dawn of the Dead ended up with like an X rating more or less. Well, no rating because they were like, fuck you, MPAA, we give up. But I mean, and this movie is PG. They got away with this much, and it wasn't R. Just saying, I'm kind of confused by that. A little bit confused by the MPAA. Maybe it was power here. I don't know.
So, Dan, how many kids in the theater were crying at this scene?
Oh no! I mean, I saw an evening screen. I saw
Good
like
question.
it must have been like a 5:00 showing, so there were no kids. It was me and a couple of other.
Oh, okay.
No, but I can only imagine what it was like in the matinee for the little kids to see this.
Mommy, what are the baby dragons doing? Nothing, dear. It reminded me of the Roland Emmerich Godzilla film, and there's a scene in which there's baby Godzillas, and for no reason other than I hate that movie, but I could see where they ripped that off from this scene, done much better in this film. But anyway, every time I mention the Roland Emmerich Godzilla, I think I have to put $5 in a jar.
Yeah,
so I'll stop talking.
So I forget, what movie did you talk about? Godzilla?
I know.
Which 1998?
Yeah, I know.
By Roland Emmerich? Is that movie that's always in the $5.99 section? No.
The movie whose name we shan't speak again. Anyway, so Galen finds the prophesied burning lake. And we get some rather curiously, you're talking about a challenging score, some curiously whimsical music in this scene.
Yes.
I just love it. I mean, it's such an amazing scene because, again, it's kind of quizzical, maybe even more than whimsical. But, I mean, again, it's been such a slow build, to finally seeing the entire thing. You've seen bits and pieces and hands and claws. But you've never gotten the whole thing. So this is kind of like the big ass scene that you've just been waiting the whole movie, to see, and it really just does not disappoint. It's just like a really amazing holy shit moment when you finally see the enormity of this thing.
Yeah, and it's perfect. They saved the creature reveal for the third act. They showed just enough. And then when you do see it, you realize, oh shit, this is a real movie with some real effects. I believe this dragon. It's massive. It looks organic. It has like bladders that make it look like it's breathing. And it just emerges from behind him. And it's a fantastic effect. I know they had multiple props for this, various sizes for stop motion. They blend it all well. But this looks like a damn dragon. I'm sorry.
Even today, it looks real. I think, though, honestly, it looks It looks wonderfully, majestically real when you look at it even today. Honestly.
Oh, totally. I mean, I think the movie is held up well because of that.
It's a testament to Phil Tippett's magistry. Phil Tippett, I am not worthy. Bowing, yes. I mean, can you say any more than Phil Tippett? Jurassic Park. I mean, RoboCop.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, to me, the two stop motion things I've ever seen that were done specifically with stop motion as opposed to CG and stop, that I felt really threatened by are Dragonslayer and RoboCop 2.
Yeah.
I mean, that thing at the end is terrifying. And that's like a traditional stop mode that, again, Phil Tippett.
Yeah.
Incredible.
He didn't go motion on that. He just went traditional.
No, that was like stop motion.
Part,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. But man, that thing is just terrifying, in a way
that was done well. I remember that. I love that end sequence of RoboCop 2. That was the best
where
part
just
of the whole
monster
movie.
itself is incredible.
Yeah.
We're digressing, but again, I have a lot more love for RoboCop 2 than most people do.
You're making me want to give it a second look. I will say.
Yeah.
It's just so fucking dark and
with fresh eyes, maybe.
Yeah, but again, it's kind of like the dragon in the scene is like a frog. I just love how you see it. Again, Harryhausen did the same stuff where he really did try to add breathing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even in like 1 million years BC, after the T-Rex gets nailed by the Triceratops, you see it breathing. So, I mean, that is, but in this, it's just like a whole kind of reptile thing going on that, again, feels just completely real in a way that you had never seen anything like this being done before.
Oh, yeah. And let's not forget, this is 1981, too.
Yeah.
We're just barely out of the 70s here.
I don't know if y'all have seen the ILM documentary on Disney Plus.
Oh, it's great.
Now. Free plug. Yeah, but they talk about the genesis of the Dragonslayer effect at one point, I remember. And you see it's just even watching the genesis of it is just really, it's like magic.
Yeah, I think this effect raised the bar. I think. I mean, you were
I'm
talking about Willow.
I
think I bet when they were making Jurassic Park, they're like, let's go back and watch Dragonslayer.
Yeah.
It has to look that real.
Yeah.
And so anyways, great dragon effects, as we mentioned, and it's just a seamless blend of stop motion, animatronics, just everything, models, all of it. Sequence after sequence just like builds as we see this dragon come up, chase Galen through the caves. And then there's a fantastic scene. We were talking about the dead babies. The dead babies pay off. And this makes it even sadder. Because, Dan, what happens? What do we see?
Well, I mean, it nuzzles the baby, and then it just realizes they're dead, and then you have a close up on its eyes, and again, it really you really feel the loss of this poor dragon. I felt terrible for it, but again, it's the level of empathy that you have for this. I mean, again, I'm a monster guy, and for me, the monsters are always cooler than the good guys. Period. Yeah.
To me, I felt like this was a Blade Runner moment, almost like even though Blade Runner was a year later, like the totally. Moment Pris dies, and Baddie's over her, touching the blood on her, her bullet wound, going Pris. Yeah, and you're like, oh fuck, I feel bad for him too. Like I feel bad too, man.
Yeah, yeah. No, again, it's a whole level of empathy.
But I felt that with the dragon here. Like I felt that Blade Runner empathy going on. Give me the Voight comp test, I guess. But yeah,
that has to be intentional. They have to. The filmmakers have to. I mean, these effect sequences are very expensive. Just for that dragon to sniff the babies and all that. That had to be for a purpose. They had to have known. Like, look.
But the effects guys they got are really good at injecting acting, and they're really good at injecting emotion into the effects.
Oh, totally.
When there's you can tell their heart was in this movie.
Yeah, and
the effects guys. This is their King Kong.
Exactly
at the time at least,
and that's perfect. That's a perfect thing because King Kong is the monster, but then you feel sympathy for the monster, and that makes a villain is what the whole story hinges on. So the more complex your villain, the more complex your feelings are toward the villain, the more interesting the story. So here we have it's not just a smog, it's not just a black and white evil dragon, that's just a force of nature. Here's a thing that is a living, breathing, reproducing animal that is probably just trying to feed itself on some level. And then you're like we talked about, you're grappling with the ethics of just killing this thing because it's not just a monster. It feels the loss of its young. And so you're like, I don't know what to feel at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so at that point, we don't have time to ponder that because Galen jumps on its back and stabs the dragon. He has this fight with the weapon, but the dragon isn't killed yet, which I like. And then Galen escapes and of course, Valerian finds him. And then I like this because they decide to flee. Galen and Valerian are like, well, movie's not over, but let's get out of this movie. We're gonna go to some other movie. This movie's fucked. Let's get out of here. And the blacksmith drives the point home. He's like, magic and dragons and all that stuff. That's fading from the world, and people are starting to go to church. And then Galen begins to realize that Ulrich had a plan. And I like how Valerian, he's like, I want to go back. He's got the ashes of the old wizard. And he's like, I'm going to go back to the Dragonslayer or Dragon's lair. And Valerian says, I'm coming too. She's like, you're just a girl. It's like, I was a man once, remember? And I like that scene. I like that line.
Yeah.
I like that. And so then Galen spreads his ashes on the lake of fire.
But here's the question: where the hell is Vermithrax during all of this?
Exactly.
That's one thing that's always kind of wondered. They're back in the cave. You think the dragon just isn't there? God knows what it's doing, but it just isn't there. So maybe by magic or whatever, that the dragon just isn't there. But that's actually one of my favorite shots in the whole film. I mean, and also the music in the sequence. I just love the whole kind of spinning top. The way they depicted it is like a spinning top, and then he goes upward, and there's this amazing shot of Ulrich who's basked in this green light floating across the river, and it's amazing.
Vortex of flame,
yeah, and it's just the expanse of the set is just, and evidently it wasn't as big as how it seems in the film. But man, I mean, it's such a, and again, Richardson comes out of this whole thing again with this kind of blow off attitude, like you bring anything to eat.
Yeah, I love it.
His character is really super whimsical and likable, through this whole thing.
You're talking, this is where we get the Close Encounters clouds, the clouds.
Well, I mean, that comes a little later, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
This is in the lake, and it kind of had...
Oh, the lake thing, yeah, I'm sorry.
It kind of had Hobbit vibes for me, just the wherever, his lair very much, it feels like a dragon's lair. And to your point, it feels like there's scale to this set. And they had I think it's a mixture of stone and paper mache or plaster or whatever, but it looks so good. And this lake has fire on it, right? And then in the midst of all this, he throws the sorcerer's ashes onto the lake, and all these fires go out, and that beautiful green flame comes, and like Dan said, he's breathed back into life. And then we see the old wizard again. And I do notice that McNichol tries an English accent here. This is the only time I noticed it in the movie. Doesn't quite work. But it doesn't matter because I don't care, because what's going on is so badass that I'm just like, holy, who cares? But
well, he's from Texas, as we say. Bless his heart.
Yeah,
he tried.
Bless his heart.
He tried with an English accent, just like Kevin Costner later on. He tried. Bless his heart.
Then he gave up halfway through the movie. He's like, we're going to kill these here dragons. We're going to, so I love that scene. It's fantastic. So the wizard is, like I said, he's resurrected. And then Ulrich tells him to, you need to destroy this amulet at the proper time. And then, they're outside. He and Valerian are outside, and the wizard disappears, and he reappears on this cliff.
This scene was I thought it was so cool.
Yeah. There's heavy Gandalf vibes here. But what happens in this scene, Jordan?
I mean, this is where on the cliff, and we're waiting for the dragons, and the clouds come. Yeah. I can't describe it. Man, I'm describing it all badly. I'm sorry.
No, you're cool. He summons a water tank cloud effect from the sky.
Exactly. That did kind of bother me for a second because it's high def. I'm sorry, this movie. I love you, this movie, but
I think it's a good effect.
But yeah, because I could kind of, see. Just because I could see the layer part for a second being a
Jordan.
I mean, I had never seen the color timing on this film. I mean, as beautiful as it looked in this. I mean, this whole.
And I know. That sounds like I'm kvetching.
And I watched this ending repeatedly over and over, like dozens of times, and I've never seen it look is amazing. And I got to tell you, I just love the shots of the dragon flying. It's like, and this, they shot clouds over Hawaii to get these cloud formations. And again,
the other cloud formations,
like, it's really a Star Wars moment, it's like a Death Star trench dive moment.
Don't get me wrong. Yeah, that aside, I just, like I said, I thought I saw the separation, but that aside, that's just me being an effects pick-apart guy. But I love, don't get me wrong, it all looked great. Yeah. I agree. It's right up there with Ten Commandments or Death Star Trench.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying is like that to me was like the biggest wow moment almost to the entire film, where you have the shots of the dragon flying. Because again, just the kind of aerodynamic that
I love the way they look.
And the music and just it's just absolutely amazing because again, it's like you're watching a bird, which is the point. It's like an eagle or something like that. And again, you had never seen any kind of monster flying in any movie ever done like this. Right. I mean, it was just really just kind of like an absolute groundbreaking moment.
It looks more comfortable in the sky than it does on the ground. Like when it walks, it walks like a bat. Yeah, exactly. It looks it looks like it's really flying. That's fantastic. Yeah. But yeah, we get this wonderful scene on this cliff and just the wind, the dragon flying. It's fantastic. It's just a very memorable scene. The score really ramps up, like we talked about earlier here. The score is really servicing everything. It's just a great scene as we see the wizard take on this dragon. Mm-hmm. Then the dragon lands and torches him, but he's like, "You can't kill me." And I love that how it torches him, and the staff is on fire. It doesn't bother him, and then it flies off. But then it does a second pass, and then it grabs it in its talons. And this is the moment, like, Valerian wants to destroy the amulet, and Galen's like, "No, wait. We'll know when the moment is." And then right when the wizard is snatched up by the dragon, Galen realizes that's the moment to destroy the amulet. And then he destroys it under a rock. What happens at that moment?
Oh, the dragon blows up real good.
Yeah.
What happens there is it's this absolutely spectacular mutual annihilation of magic. Again, Vermithrax is almost again like a bomber at this point, and it gets annihilated like a bomber, and you're like watching literally like footage of a plane going down in World War II. The smoke trail, and then it hits the lake and it completely annihilates the water. I mean, to me, it's probably still one of the really spectacular monster deaths. Again, I'm not a fan of stabbing and spearing, and I just don't. To me, it's just kind of yucky. But I love kind of spectacular monster endings by fire, by explosion, and it just doesn't get than that. Not for the dragon, but
the dragon, it sucks, and you're right. It's fantastic. It's visceral. It's all that. It is the death of magic. It is in the birth of Christianity. I don't know what it's saying. But it's the death of innocence in a way, and the death of mystery in the world.
Right.
But it goes out in a big, huge ball of flame, and you're right. It's better than somebody just walking up and stabbing a dragon.
Right.
It's probably one of the best dragon deaths in all of movie or film history. I mean, for sure.
It looks like a realistic Sleeping Beauty, Disney Sleeping Beauty, but like
that's a good one. Yeah,
but more hardcore, more violent. You know.
I mean, and then the great thing, it cuts from there to like the smoking corpse with all its guts hanging out, and again, that's something you weren't expecting. Again, just like those graphic level of like giant innards and stomach and yuck.
And all the children are crying in the theater.
Yeah.
And you can tell that they did that for real. They built it for real, you know, to where the actors had something to touch and react to.
Or the king to stab his sword into, and Dragonslayer, and, you know, I mean, but
I love that.
The beauty of this movie and its practical effects, I have to say, man, it's just more testament to practical effects once again and the realism of it.
Yeah, and I love that. So yeah, you see the like Dan said, the bomber falling out of the sky, just boom, and the lake is boils, like it gremlins boils, you know.
Yeah.
and then it just evaporates, and then you have this dead dragon in the middle of it with a bunch of, I presume to be like cow innards all over it.
Yeah, probably.
Like it's real.
We got ourselves a dead dragon.
I'm sure that smelled great on set. But anyway, but then the wonderful thing, the king comes and barely sticks his sword in the dragon, and it's like, oh, hey, oh, king, what's his ass? Dragonslayer. And you're like, oh, politics won in the end. You know what I mean? It's like, did you see how I killed this dragon? Everyone knows, you know, I'm the best. There never has been a better dragon slayer than me. You know,
he goes all Trump on this dragon.
People are saying I killed this dragon. People are saying,
look, I put the sword in myself. Look at that. That's a big sword I put in. No bigger sword than this one.
Yeah. And so, so more politics, and I love that too. And then it's funny because that happens, and then Galen and Valerian are like, fuck this movie, we're out of here. You know, I'm not gonna stick around for whatever's happening after this,
because the king went and took credit for him killing that dragon,
and you're left with a feeling that this is how history really happens. You know what I mean? Everyone dies in a battle, and one guy who just runs up, who wasn't even in the battle, says, "I am the victor," and you're like, "Oh!" And then he's the guy who makes it to the history books. You know,
thank God I saved the day.
It's a perfect jaded ending, and I love it.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
True.
And then we get some congressional hymns as Christianity wins the day as well. And anyway, so I like that because this movie at its core, on top of being a fun monster movie, is just replete with commentaries on religion, privilege, corruption, and power. And you can read as much as you choose to in all of this.
But it's weird that the religious people don't believe in the dragon, though, kind of, in the movie. You know, it's interesting. That's what's interesting about it. You know, like,
well, Galen doesn't get the credit. You know, magic doesn't get the credit, and I guess it's the death of magic. But it's like nobody was around to see that part. So then the church comes out, proclaims that it did it. And then the king proclaims that he did it, you know, and he's got the mandate of heaven or whatever. And so and that's what made it to the history books. And now that's a tapestry 1,000 years later. It doesn't tell the real story, you know, as all history. So anyways, lot of fun, this movie. Those are the things I like about it. And we've all talked about the effects. We've talked about the score, the scenery. The locations are fantastic. The sets are fantastic. There's so much this movie does right. But on a budget of $18 million, it made $14.1 million domestic at the box office, I believe. Dan, Jordan, why? Why did that happen?
Well, I mean, I think basically, again, it's a slow-moving film. I think maybe the word got out that it was a fairly slow adult approach. It was not a kiddie movie by any stretch of the imagination. Again, you had only really ever seen kiddie movies with fantastical creatures. I mean, that you had never really seen a pretty serious film done like this. And maybe the word got out about the level of violence in it, you know, that it wasn't a kids movie. And God knows how much, you know, Paramount actually pumped it, how much advertising or publicity it got.
Yeah.
I mean, the trailer, when you watch it, is part on the 4K. It's kind of an okay trailer, but again, it doesn't really sell the film. It's not a terribly exciting trailer. And again, it's a very dark movie. It's visually a dark movie. It's you can even tell from the trailer that it was going for an older audience that probably didn't appreciate the level of realism. You're not going to get like a 40-year-old guy to say, hey, I'm going to go see Dragon. At least you'll get this 58-year-old guy going to see anything. But in terms of appealing to, you're going for kids.
Yeah. And that was a big summer too.
Well, Excalibur, but conversely, Excalibur did really well. But Excalibur is King Arthur. That's like a known quantity.
Excalibur cost less money too, I think, actually, than this movie. Technically. Yeah. I think Excalibur cost about $5 million, maybe. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's probably less than Dragonslayer for sure.
Yeah, compared to Dragonslayer. Because like Borman shot it next to home. It was done low budget, basically.
Yeah, it's weird. I think, and sometimes you never know. I think critics liked it. I think the poster was a bit uninspiring. I don't know if that affects anything.
The artwork's pretty cool in the poster.
No, I like it. But it kind of has a old school Frank Frazetta, Tom Jong-young, whatever his name is from Star Wars feel. I think the poster is beautiful personally. I don't know if it tells the tale. If the trailer and the marketing and all that had to have had something to do with it.
Or Dan, what do you think? Do you think that back then, did it look like a poster that was appealing back then to kids, or I don't know?
I think basically it was evoking Star Wars. It was evoking the poster of Star Wars, where you've got like young people.
Yeah.
In the center.
You're right. It was that inspired. Yeah.
Essentially Darth Vader, which is a dragon in back of him. And I think the poster is beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, there are definitely more exciting posters that were done that came out overseas for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, in terms of sword and sorcery being done for kids, I mean, it was kind of, again, the realm of Disney and, like fantasies and stuff like that. I just think the movie kind of looked different, maybe more adult, and maybe didn't sell the Munster. Maybe if they'd shown the Munster, it would have done better. But again,
did it have too much competition that summer? Maybe.
Clash of the Titans. What was the release of the Dragon? So
there's a lot of movies. I mean, we were talking about a lot of movies already back then. Yeah, Raiders also killed a lot of shit.
Ark, so
Superman 2 also came out that summer. People keep crediting it to 1980, but it came out 81 here in America.
Yeah. So again, you've got, movies that are more appealing to kids, that are brighter, but again, for the people like me who literally sat, like, again, it was there are very few movies I've sat through twice in a row. First time, Brazil, Blade Runner, where I was just so completely astounded by what I saw that I just had to see it. I think, again, it certainly made an impact on people who appreciated this to, keep the fandom of this alive through decades to the point where we're getting a 4K release. I mean, they're definitely older. I mean, unfortunately, Paramount put out Young Sherlock Holmes and they didn't do half the job on what I think is a wonderful film.
Yeah.
Oh, is that on 4K?
No, it isn't. It came out in Blu-ray. They evidently didn't even bother to strike a new transfer. I mean, it looked okay to me. But again, it could have had extras on it, and they just didn't seem to bother.
I saw that one in the theater. That's another podcast.
Oh my god, I saw that when it came out, man.
That blew me away as a 9-year-old. I mean, I didn't know who Sherlock Holmes was, and that was my gateway right there.
Yeah,
sadly.
Yeah,
they really, and you can say, well, Young Sherlock Holmes is Spielberg, and you think they would have done any extras, but nothing. I mean, it's such a disappointing release.
God, is like Barry Levinson embarrassed by this movie? Is Nick?
No, I doubt it. I mean, I think he appreciates the fans. But again, when you look at the love and just the restoration that was put into Dragon, it's astonishing. It's probably one of the best 4Ks I own.
Wow. I don't own a 4K player. Now I want to buy a 4K player.
Oh my God.
Plug for 4K.
And buy a new projector.
But you have to have the television set. That's the thing. You got to have a 4K television.
I only have a 1080 ready, so yeah.
Yeah, so you got to have the whole package to appreciate.
But I hear 35 looks great on 4K.
But despite the weak box office at the time, like you mentioned, this has garnered a huge cult following amongst many filmmakers, especially with effects. It's fantastic. It's got a great story. It really keeps moving, and it a little under 2 hours. It doesn't feel long.
It's slow, but it takes its time.
It takes its time.
And again, it feels like a real. This isn't even like you're watching a kind of wonderfully goofy, like historical. This is like, again, you're watching like a British, like The Duelists almost in a way, which was another.
I love The Duelists.
Great movie. I just recently rewatched that. It came out in 78,
78, right.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott's first movie.
The Duelists took a beautiful but simultaneously realistic look at what it's like to be, a soldier. And again, Dragonslayer is almost like The Duelists in a way where just the painstaking care it takes to replicate history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, considering the pace, do you think it would have helped if they trimmed some of the time off?
I think
the first part of the movie?
Maybe. But again, I don't really care about, unless you're putting yourself through something like Beau is Afraid for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Unless the movie is like making its insane length of virtue. But you have to remember that most of the fantasy films at the time were around 2 hours.
Yeah.
And length means nothing when you've got like the Harry Potter films, which are go like 2.5 hours, but they're completely engrossing.
I looked at the time. It's an hour and 49 minutes, and I know the dragon. I timed the dragon. Even the dragon comes in 25 minutes into the movie.
But you don't see
the whole thing until the last 40 minutes.
That's when you first see the claw, at least.
I mean, it shows you the dragon at the beginning of the third act, so you see it and you're impressed with it, and then you see even more of it later. So I think it's a really good, effective use of monster effects.
It doesn't waste time.
No,
editorially speaking.
No, I mean the time in there is world building, and for a fantasy film, we can certainly, we're walking to Mordor, and it's going to take us 3 movies. Like we have patience. You know what I mean? When fantasy movies,
eat your heart out, Peter Jackson. This does not have any slow motion. Just build.
Yeah, I mean, you could say definitely the Hobbit movies are a bit long, But, in this case, again, I'm a fan of the slow reveal, again, because I'm from an older generation where I don't mind waiting.
Yeah.
You're not that much older than us, are you?
Yeah, guy. Yeah. You're not that old.
It's like, it's like even like The Thing is the original Thing.
Yeah.
The Howard Hawks one?
Yeah. Where the whole thing is, when am I going to see this thing? And again, as long as the movie delivers what it's promising, and Dragonslayer delivered like no other film had ever delivered before it.
Yeah.
So I don't mind, but again, that kind of maybe patience was kind of going south when it came out. Is that people, wanted their kids wanted to see what was going on. They wanted to get their Munster, Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's objectively not a bad movie because we all know the Academy Awards are right. And they nominated this film for Best Visual Effects, which it did not win. It lost to Raiders. Tough year.
Oh, although it was the same guys anyway, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right? Win some, lose some.
Right.
It seems a little rigged, if you ask me. We got there's a horse race, but half of the horses are ours.
At that point, they're like, we own the Academy, fucker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Best Score. Which it lost to Chariots of the Gods. Sorry, Chariots of Fire.
Chariots of the Gods.
Which also had a great score. Was that not nominated this year?
I actually have the vinyl of that.
Chariots of the Gods by Vangelis. Narrated by William Shatner.
So anyway, which it lost, and of course. But yeah, a great film. So final thoughts. Dan, what kind of rating do you give this film? We normally do out of 10.
10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 for me.
10 out of 10.
To me, it's a masterpiece. It is one of the best fantasy films I've ever made. I thought it was a masterpiece when I saw it, and I think it's a masterpiece now. I just think it's an amazing film. And again, watching it just so beautifully restored on this new 4K is just confirms my, again, with the sound effects and everything, man, it just totally, it just totally throws you into the film in a way that very few fantasy films do. And it takes, there's nothing wrong with adult or or lots of creatures. I love that stuff. But again, it's a very relatively adult movie. And again, you've just never before or since seen a fantasy film take itself with the level of seriousness that this does. So for me, 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Jordan, what about you?
Not to sound like I'm kissing Dan's ass, but 10 out of 10 also because this was was nice rediscovering this movie, and it was a breath of fresh air discovery. Like opening an old like opening up a bottle of wine that was a really good vintage, that had been, just years old. It was from 1981, this bottle of wine.
Yeah.
It was, and just because of the effects, I guess that's why I give it a 10 out of 10, because of the Phil Tippett, Dennis Muren, Ken Ralston, ILM dragon. That's like, this dragon is the best dragon still to this day, in my opinion. I'll take this dragon over any dragon still. Out
Peter
of any
Jackson.
movie dragon.
Ooh.
Eat your heart out any other movie dragon, honestly.
Yeah.
And again, I got to give a shout out, Chris Wallace, who's a Facebook friend. I mean, the puppets in that are amazing.
Yeah,
the baby dragons, the dragon head puppet, just incredible stuff. So that's really, and also the full scale dragon stuff is incredible.
Chris Wallace, who also worked on Raiders, by the way, which won the.
Yeah, well, for me, I'm trying to wrap my head around what went wrong with this and why audiences didn't
wrong with
watch
what?
What?
Tell us.
Why the audiences didn't watch this wonderful film? I don't know.
Now you can give it a 5, dude. I respect your opinion.
No.
I was gonna say 10 out of 10 crystals. By the way, dragon or crystals from this movie. Anthony, are you there? We lost you. Hello.
I think he's so shamed that he was going to give it a 2 that he just disconnected.
Yeah. Anthony, do you want to use a lifeline? Hello?
He's gone.
Can you hear me now? Oh. Sorry, I think my audio dropped.
You did. You just dropped. We couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
This whole time you dropped out. Okay.
I know, because I could hear you. I'm like, guys, I'm here, guys. And I was like, did I pass? Am I on the other side? Okay. Anyway, no, I was just trying to...
your rating. You were going to give it your rating.
Yeah, but I was trying to figure out why this movie did so bad in the box office, like audiences or any gauge for anything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But... I do think, and this isn't a problem with me, but I could see how some might say you could trim maybe some time off the first third of the movie.
Tighten it up slightly, just a
little bit. I don't see that would make it any better, but it would probably make it a little tighter. And I don't know. I could see Galen's arc being a little tighter, just a little more the hero's journey, like we talked about. It's there, but just a little punchier, maybe showing him a little wimpier in the beginning, and then you see him growing into the sorcerer that he is to become. And I love his moment of doubt at the end with Ulrich, but I just, it's all there. I just think it could be.
Wait, so we're the Roger Ebert here. You're the Gene Siskel.
I'm going to Gene Siskel the hell out of this movie.
How dare you, Gene Siskel, this movie?
Spit it out, man. What are you going to give it?
I give it a damn 8 out of 10, and the two for no reason, just because you can't get I'm a tough professor. You can't get an A. Okay, you're gonna get a B plus in this class. No, it's like you said.
That's true. That is a great rating for you, actually.
Dan, thank you for. I'm the cynic here. Dan, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. This is a movie I hadn't seen it for.
Oh, my pleasure. Again, I'm preaching the gospel of this and a lot of other great movies that, again, it's really a wonderful time for physical media, when you're finally getting stuff that, I mean, obviously now, okay, bring on The Keep in 4K.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Again, when you see something like this come out, as good as it has, it really raises your hopes for them to, that Paramount can... finally get some of these really requested titles out.
Yeah, speaking of movies with visuals, yeah, this is definitely it's amazing. I'll have to watch it in 4K. All right, well, this has been a wonderful experience. We watched a good movie for once.
Yeah,
so that's great.
Yeah, compared to some of the other movies we watch on here that aren't always great, but we pick apart. Yeah, Dan, I was going to say thank you for coming to our clubhouse here.
My pleasure. I'm very happy to join you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, appreciate it. And this has been great. So, Dan, is there anything, where can we find you?
Again, go to onthescore.com, onthescore.com. You can read all about my soundtrack stuff, my video casts, all the stuff I'm up to.
Cool. All right. Yeah, thanks again for joining. And everyone, thank you for listening. We appreciate it. And if you like this, listen to some of our episodes, like, subscribe, whatever buttons you have, hit the good ones. We appreciate that. If you have any movies that you'd like to hear us review, just reach on out and tell us. Dan, once again, it's been awesome having you.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. Take care. And Jordan, this has been
The Robots Took My Podcast.
All trailers, clips, music, or any other copyrighted material are used sparingly, edited from their original forms, and used for the purposes of criticism, discussion, commentary, and education about these fine films.